Hey there, welcome to another episode of Snap Tackle Pod. I'm Mick Shaffer of KSHB41. He is Dion Clisso of Preps KC. Our topic, Kansas City high school football that has now moved on into the playoffs for both Kansas and Missouri. We're here with you, I don't know, for how long? 20, 30 minutes? However long you talk, Dion, right? Depends on
pretty much 20, 30 minutes.
Your string.
We did our first Twitter spaces last night, and after
you did. You didn't invite me, you and Cole.
Well, it was on Twitter. It invited anybody. It was Cole Young and I did that, and you showed up later and tried to pass that off as our podcast. And I said, no, the 5 or 6 people that watch this every week want a separate standalone Snap Tackle Pod. So yeah, no, it is playoff week. That Twitter Spaces was kind of fun. We had a couple people ask questions. Yeah. I think we had 90 people stop by.
I saw some like famous coaches' names. Were
Yes. I think Ryan
Korkemaier was on there, I think.
And Korkemaier was on there, and probably talking about how they're enigmatic, and I can't pick them right all season long. And got them back in the picks again this week as they play Shawnee Mission Northwest, and I'm sure I'll be on the wrong side of it no matter what. And that's a great way to kick off. That may be the best game of the week right there. Shawnee Mission Northwest and Blue Valley West, 2 teams in that 8-9 game.
Well, I mean, we got sent in the playoffs last weekend with a crazy weekend. So many results that none of us probably picked. One of those being Blue Valley beating Blue Valley West.
Yes,
Blue Valley West. A lot of crazy finishes in the EKL and the Sunflower League. Let's start with a wild one between 2 pretty good 6A teams in Olathe South and Gardner Edgerton. And what was it? Olathe South scored a long touchdown with no time left, and then they got a 2-point conversion, both times just going to Jordan Allen.
Yeah, that was a crazy Thursday night game. Unfortunately, we didn't get that covered, and I'm mad at myself because I wanted to cover it. I was like, I think this would be a pretty good game. But yeah, it was. I think Gardner scored with less than a minute left.
Yep.
To take the lead.
And
then Olathe South marched right back down and got that win. And
I think it was 40 seconds and 14 seconds. It was crazy.
Yeah,
it was quick.
Yeah, it was one of those. I was sitting right here in front of the computer and following it on Twitter, and it was crazy and a huge win for Olathe South. They end up with the 3 seed, and they are a team that's really played well this year, along with Olathe West. Everybody thinks about Olathe. All 4 Olathe teams are hosting a game this weekend. So it's one of those deals where the Olathe schools have really showed up. Then? There are 2 Thursday games this week. Because actually 3. Blue Valley Northwest is playing on Thursday as well. But the Olathe South, Olathe North, Olathe West, Olathe Northwest, all hosting games in the postseason this year.
That's wild. Speaking of Olathe, another surprising result. Olathe North losing 31-19 to Lawrence Free State. How much of that was just kind of North on a letdown after the big win over Mill Valley the week before, and how much of it was, hey, this is an upstart Lawrence Free State team?
I think it's a little of both. We talked with Kevin Stewart last week, and they replaced 18 starters off of that team from last year. It was a pretty good team last year, and we talked about Jackson Eanes and the other, Jordan Brown, some of the players off that team. But I think he was quietly confident going into that game, just because based off the way his team had played the previous 3 weeks and winning 3 straight. But he also knew that it was going to be a tough task, and that Olathe North was a very good football team. Hats off to his kids who went in there with no fear and kind of controlled the game. I mean, they were up most of the game, almost the entire game, and won by double digits. And Olathe North, there's definitely a spot for a letdown there coming off the big win over Mill Valley, especially knowing going into the weekend, win or lose, they were the 1 seed. Mm-hmm. Nothing was changing with the way they were. Free State played themselves into an 8-9 game, which means they play Wichita East this week. And if they win, they get number 1 seed Manhattan next week. But no, I think it says a lot about where that Free State team has come over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and how they've just kind of, grown, and a great job by that coaching staff and Coach Stewart. And he's the Chiefs coach of the week this week, and deservedly so.
Absolutely. All right, over in the EKL, we talked about Blue Valley upsetting Blue Valley West, but the big upset was Blue Valley North winning for the first time since week 3 of last season, and beating a good St. James team.
That's another. I think that's a St. James team that had played really well for 4 weeks straight, and looked at the record across the field and didn't take them seriously. I think it just shows that in the EKL,
Don't
the
don't try to
record.
come up for air in the EKL.
Yeah, yeah. There's no off week. There's no bye week in the EKL, and I think that Blue Line North showed that. I mean, that's Blue Line North team that's got a lot of good players and is still a very good program. That's just not even 2 years removed from the state championship game against Derby. So that's still a lot of good players, and that makes them even more dangerous now. They've got a little confidence going in the postseason. And St. James probably definitely awake in a run that's going to be they're on the same side now with Aquinas and Mages on the other side of that bracket as they go into that 4A bracket.
Mm-hmm. Also in the EKL, Blue Valley Northwest getting a good win over Bishop Miege. So you got Miege at 6-2, Northwest at 5-3. Are they the two best teams in the league, at least at the moment right now?
I'd say so. Well, Aquinas is right there too.
Yeah.
They've played their best football since having those back-to-back losses. So it's definitely interesting in the EKL. I mean, the season's over for the EKL to try and say who's the best team. The fun thing is going to be see which teams go on and go deep. I mean, I think one of those three teams probably are the favorite, to come out of the 4A bracket. And Northwest that's a team that won a state championship last year and beat up Derby in the state championship game. Is very physical, and they got Grant Stubblefield back. They're and while he was gone, the backup played really well. So they now have two threats, which means if you got a guy who could play the tailback spot, you can move Stubblefield out of the slot and do some things with him, which makes that team even more dangerous offensively. But defensively, they're really good and they're really physical.
Not to be outdone with Missouri, man. Dion on the Missouri side last week. Lee Summit North, Park Hill was primed for maybe the upset of the season. They were up on North, right? Most of the game. North has to come back, send into overtime, and then the Broncos got the win in OT.
I think it shows how dangerous Park Hill is. With Kendrick Bell, who's now a Michigan commit, like his brother Ronnie, who's up there right now. That offense is as good as any offense in the city, and they are a team you do not want to take lightly. They get Rockhurst this week. That's if you want to dive into that district, 2 through 7 are dangerous, and really if you can look at 8 in Blue Springs, who put it on Ray Peck this week because they're playing a lot better. So that Park Hill Lee Summit North game was probably very scary for Lee Summit North. It kept them from getting a chance to get that number 1 seed. I think if they had a plus 13 Park Hill, they would have probably had a shot at that number 1 seed, but they don't. Nixa gets it, so that means that they'll have to go on the road at some point in the district playoffs if Nixa comes through. So, at the same time, though, I think if you're Coach Mosey, a wake up call right before the playoffs is not a bad thing. You're going to have it. That's the time to have it.
No, it's created a little pocket there in the bracket of all the Lee Summit teams are going to basically play each other, or at least there's going to be 2 Lee Summit games, perhaps, most likely in the next 2 weeks, with Lee Summit and Lee Summit West being, would that be the 6th and the 7th seed in that district? Yeah,
I think Lee Summit West has got to go down and beat Kickapoo to keep their season alive, and then Lee Summit's playing Lee Summit North. So we'll see. I think
possibility too. Yes,
possible. Okay. I think West has played better competition than Kickapoo has all season. There's no questioning that. It just depends on where Lee Summit West is at. They got beat badly by Liberty North last week, and so it's West has shown at times that they can play that they can play well and put games together, but they've also they lost 7 times, so it's gonna be interesting how they do against Kickapoo.
Yep. Oak Park and Fort Osage, man, that one didn't disappoint. Down the wire, 35-30. Fort Osage gets the win, affects the district standings there.
Yeah, and I thought it'd be a low-scoring game and tight, but it was a little higher-scoring game, and it just shows both these teams are capable of putting some points on the board. And Fort Osage is back with the number 1 seed, but Oak Park's the 2 in a district that's going to be real interesting to watch. That also features North Kansas City and Platte County. So there's no easy road for whoever comes out of that district.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's look ahead here to it's week 10.
10/9.
The first week of, I got a week 10 overall, week 9 for Kansas, week 10 for Missouri. And let's take a look at some of these matchups. Let's start with the big 3, I guess, for you, Dion, and then we'll kind of fill in the blanks after that. Staying on the Missouri side, Park Hill and Rockhurst. This is Park Hill going to Rockhurst, correct?
Yes. And Rockhurst has played well. They've won 4 in a row. Last week they played Harmon in a game that was kind of structured beforehand. It was kind of the seniors who don't play for Rockhurst and some of the backups and some sophomores, and it was 41-0 Rockhurst. But really for the Harmon kids, a great experience in terms of playing in a stadium they wouldn't normally get to play in, and they had I think they fed them and did the pregame meal and all that stuff for them. Rock has not played a tough game in a while. They've been pretty well. They played Saluda. They didn't play very well in that game, and they won in overtime in that game. But Park Hill is playing better. They can score. The question is, can they get the ball enough to score, and can they score quickly enough? Because Rockers is going to keep the ball away from them. They're going to be methodical in what they do. But that's a great any of those games from 2 to 7 are fantastic in that district.
Yeah, because the winner is going to take on Park Hill South or Staley, which is another one of the big 3 games.
Yes, and Park Hill South is playing as well as anybody. Staley is quietly got to 7-2, and I think that guy Steve Rampy could coach a little. I think he may stick. I think he may stick at Staley. I think they should keep him around. I think he has shown some promise. The young coach.
They're 7-2, huh?
Yeah,
I feel like we don't talk about them enough.
They lost to Lee Summit North in the first 4 weeks, and they haven't lost since. And so, they'd be Liberty, beat Park Hill, beat Park Hill South. Now that you're in the spot for some of these teams, you got to beat somebody a second time. Park Hill South with Briggs Bartosh and Jones, their other tailback, are really offensively playing well. And so this is a coin flip game. I mean, a 2-7 game should not be a coin flip game. It's a coin flip game. Every game outside of 1-8, which is Liberty North Blue Springs in that district, is a coin flip game.
Okay. That's why they're the Remax big 3 games of the week right
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Crispin and Platte County, this one sounds familiar, Dion. We're just doing a redo here.
Yes, there's a few of these that hey, you played last week. Let's do it again. And I think Platte County is definitely the favorite in this game, but it's tough to play anybody 2 weeks in a row, especially when you won pretty easily the first time. Yeah. And I think that's a test for high school kids. We talked about Olathe North with the letdown last week. How do you're watching the same film again? You're watching it, and you're just trying to correct whatever errors you made. When you win big, you think, well, we didn't make that many errors, but yeah, you probably did. And if you're Crispin, it's house money at this point. No one, you lost to them last week. No one expects you to win this week. This is a chance to really kind of put a bow on your season and have something to take into the offseason, no matter what happens. If you were to win this week, no matter what happens in the district semis.
Yep. All right. Over on the Kansas side here, your big 3 games of the week, you've got Shawnee Mission Northwest and Blue Valley West, couple of kind of middle of the road teams from the Sunflower and the EKL. Yeah.
I think Blue Valley West is a good team. They've only won 3 games. I think Shawnee Mission Northwest isn't a bad team. They've only won twice. So it's
two teams that thought they'd have a couple more wins.
I think that
win column.
I think the EKL ate up Blue Valley West a little bit, and I think the youth that Shawnee Mission Northwest has kind of hampered them in some spots. Mm-hmm. But both well coached teams and have got really good players on both squads. So this is a fun one. It's going to be on Spectrum Sports, so I get to watch it. Looking forward to it. I haven't picked Blue Valley West right all season, so I can't tell you. Don't have to ask me who I think is going to win that game. And they've been inconsistent. They're up and down.
West fans are crossing their fingers, hoping you'll pick.
That I pick Northwest. Yes, yeah. If I pick Northwest, then it's a lock for Blue Valley West. And I haven't decided how I'm doing that yet. We're going to do picks here a little later today, but no. In fact, all you have to know about picks is Coach Walmsgans, who I do the show with, and how tough that has been to pick Blue Valley West. Last week they were the first pick on the list that I sent to him, and he goes, "When I got the list, I was like, really? We have to pick Blue Valley West again?" Yeah. And I think, I think that's, it's tough. And I think when you're a team like West and you're in that league, it's just a tough grind. And then when they stepped out of the league, they got Staley and lost by 1 point, So yeah, it's that's a good game. And Malik Oatis is sitting about 1,800 and I think 50 yards, 19 touchdowns. I mean, he's, with one game, he could easily go over 2,000. And that says a lot right there in 9 games. So, he's a guy who could be a Simone finalist, and so it's a fun Class 6 game in the first week. And, when you do 1 through 16, like Kansas does, finding those good games in week 1 are tough to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Speaking of coaches who are saying really right now, First of all, Baser Linwood, nice run last week, almost within 10 points of DeSoto's the 2 seed on the east side in Kansas 5A. But they're 6-2, Dion, and A, they got the 7 seed. How's that only get you the 7 seed in 4A? And B, they're taking on the 10 seed in St. James, the 2-time defending state champs. Rod Selvar was going to be like, really? All right, the 10 seed is who we got, and it's the 2-time defending state champs.
Yeah, it's 4A is tough because you have teams like Atchison and Chanute, and Wamego. Yeah, and Wamego who play outside. I mean, Atchison plays in the Meadowlark League. And look, Atchison's dominated everybody that played. So it's not. I'm not trying to say they play in the weak league and they're not there. They're dominant. This is maybe one of the better Atchison teams of the last decade. Chanute and Wamego play outside the city. I think are good teams. Wamego came up here and played Washington and pounded them.
Wamego's got a really good quarterback, right? Man, they're at least on the west side.
Yeah. But Chanute's down there in the south. And so then you take the Frontier League teams, Eudora and Lewisburg, they each have 1 loss. So there's 4 spots right there with 2 undefeateds and 2 1-loss teams. And so if you're a 2-loss team like Baser, you look up and you're in the 7 spot. And then on the backside, you've got a 4-4 St. James that's sitting in the 10. So it's unlucky that it's that way, but it gives us a great game in round 1. I think if you're Stahlbomber and Tom Radke, you're going to have to play a team like Baser at some point. I mean, whether it's week 1 or week 2 or week 3.
Wouldn't you rather play them later? I would.
I would. Yeah,
it's an accomplishment getting from round to round, right? You'd rather end the season November 18th than October 28th.
I think there's a lot of benefits for playing another couple of weeks, so your younger players get more practices, and you see how that helps teams grow as time goes on. But it's tough. I mean, it seems like, especially with Aquinas being down in 4A, you're going to have more and more of these first round matchups of teams that are really good. It just happens the way the bracket shakes out.
Yeah. That was the Remax Big 3 game of the week, by the way. And your last one is Tongi and Piper. What are their seeds?
I think I'll let you look at it.
I'm looking at it right.
Tongi is
that's the 8-9 game.
It's the 8-9 game.
And that's a big game in that the winner would get Chanute and would have a great shot of beating Chanute, right?
Yes, and I Tongi's record isn't great this year. They're young, but they've been in a lot of games. They've had a few blowouts there against some really good teams, but they've been in a lot of games, and they always play. Even though it's not Al Troyer who's the head coach, it's his son Preston, and they have the same DNA of that team of well coached and play hard. Mm-hmm. And then Piper, coached by John Black, who's the first year there. They've had a really solid season. They were playing really well, then ran into DeSoto a couple weeks ago, whose defense just shut them out. But they've been able to play pretty well. And I like, you're right. I mean, this is a game where if you win this game, you got to feel like you had a pretty good chance in the second round against a Chanute team that I think is good, but it probably has been tested the way a Frontier League team or an EKL or a UKC team has.
Yeah. So kind of forecasting that bracket, if you look on the east side, Miege is the 5 seed, kind of on the top side. And you have Aquinas and St. James on the bottom side. So you'd see maybe a Thunder Saint matchup possibly before you'd see either one of them play Stags. Looking ahead in 4A. All right, let's take a look at, just kind of want to go through these brackets here. 5A. And when you look at, is it Mill Valley and then DeSoto and Blue Valley Southwest are the 2 other contenders there to knock off the Jags?
Yeah, probably. I did a podcast with Anthony Orrick, and he's in a good spot. They've got Topeka Seaman, then they play the winner of Highland Park and thinking off the top of my head who Highland Park plays. And I think they'd be favored in both those games.
Highland Park plays Emporia.
Yep. A bad Emporia team.
1-7.
Yeah, not good and not close. Not close in those games. Which for Highland Park, you can talk about a team didn't win a game for 5 years. Talking about a postseason win there. I mean, Trey Richardson, their tailback's outstanding, and so he's definitely a guy that can win you a game or two in the postseason. So talk about Blue Valley Southwest. they're playing well. They got beat by Aquinas last week, and it was one of those where they got down early, and he went ahead and pulled his starters just to stay healthy for the run, and it was one of those things that so they're healthy at the right time, and so they are in a quarter of the bracket where they probably feel like they can get out of their little quarter and then see what happens for them, and then you talk about DeSoto, they're on that side of the bracket with DeSoto, so they would see them maybe in a quarterfinal, and then Mill Valley's just kind of I did Mill Valley apologize last week after
For what?
They were angry. They were angry last week, it looked like, in their game against
Oh,
Shawnee
yeah, they
Mission
played
East.
angry against Shiny Mission East. Hey, East had them down 3-0, and then I think scored the next 63. Yeah, and that was a tough game too, and that there was a JV game on Saturday, so that would have been 3 games that week. So they played some of the 2s, but they needed the 3s and some of the 2s to play in the JV game. So some of the starters had to stay in a little bit longer. So yeah, no, they played angry. And look, yeah, hopefully it's the loss that kind of propels them last year. They lost to Free State and then won the next 8. And losses can be good for you. So yeah. Hey, let's take a look at 6A here. We've talked about a couple of those games. Who's your favorite out there? Is it Olathe North? Is it Blue Valley Northwest? Is it somebody else?
I'm leaning towards Blue Valley Northwest. That being said, I think Olathe North's going to play a lot better than they did last week against Free State. And then I'm intrigued by Olathe West and Olathe South. I mean, those are probably the 4 teams I think that you got to talk about.
Olathe West got a really good draw. They got a really good draw. They could easily make it to Sub-State, I think, because you got Blue Valley Northwest up on the same
Sub-State.
side.
What's that? I don't speak Kansas. Is that semifinals? Is that semifinals?
That's semifinals. Sorry.
In football, it's semifinals. It means different things in different sports, which means it's a word that doesn't have a meaning.
My high school team, we made it to Sub-State, and I've just got to say we made it to semifinals, because Sub-State, people's eyes just gloss over. What does that mean? I'm like, hey, we got a Final Four. Okay, I get what that means.
Yes, because the problem with the word Sub-State is it has a different meaning for different sports.
Oh, everybody goes to Sub-State in basketball.
Yes,
everybody goes.
So
in football, only 4 go.
So if it has different meanings, it has no meaning in effect. So I will not stop my campaign.
Sectional and district finals. Just give NCAA tournament, right? Give me
quarterfinals, Sweet 16.
Give me Elite 8. Give me Sweet 16. I understand that.
Everyone understands those words, and that's one of the. I will not stop until I am dead on my campaign to get rid of Sub-State.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because I do remember my first year covering the Kansas side, and it was the old 4-team districts. And when they got done with the game, they went out to the middle of the field and handed out a trophy. And I'm like, what is this? Oh, they won by districts.
Every round you get a trophy.
Every round you get a trophy.
Yeah.
A patch. So yeah. So I mean, Missouri at least has districts and then state. I mean, and that's kind of the way they do it. There's no, I mean, they used to call it the sectional round. There was, you won your district, it was one team coming out, then it was sectionals, then quarterfinals, then semifinals, the state. And then when they went to, multiple teams coming out, it was regional, sectional. I don't know why it was regional. The first regional district, that kind of thing. So, the Sub-State thing just wears me thin.
All right. So quickly here, I don't want to ignore Bishop Ward having a nice season. They're 6-4. They're in 6-2 rather. They're in class 3A.
3A.
Good luck to the Cyclones. They're the 2 seed, playing all those Southeast Kansas schools. I guess look fairly confident up first, and then a lot of out of the area schools.
Possibly Hayden in the second round. Baldwin plays Hayden, and they could get Hayden in the second round. But no, I think we
got Baldwin too. Yeah.
Yeah, Baldwin too. Bob Lisher. Don't forget about Bob Lisher. Hey,
I can't
keep
sorry.
it.
Well, I forgot
keep an eye.
Ward Baldwin matchup.
Keep an eye on Baldwin the next couple of years. They are young, and we know he can coach it, and they are going to be pretty good the next few years. So, no, Bishop Ward is really clinched their first winning season since 2009. They have a chance. They've back-to-back playoff appearances. Have a chance to get their first playoff win. I think probably since 2009. So. Yeah, they've had a great season, but it's not over. It's not like happy to be here. They were that was last year. I think now
Yeah.
they're ready to kind of win some games, and who knows? I mean, Hayden's not the Hayden that rolls over people. They got a shot. I mean, they got players. They got a shot.
Yeah. Okay, over in Class 6 in Missouri, who are the biggest stumbling blocks for a Liberty North, Lee Summit North championship game? I'll get CBC out of the way. I'm sure that's the biggest
CBC
one.
it coming out.
CBC's on Liberty North side of the bracket.
They're on Liberty North side. Lee Summit North gets out of their district. They probably play like a Troy Buchanan or somebody or Marquette or something like that, and they should be able to win that game in their sleep. But they both are going to have to get their district. Nix is pretty good down there. Joplin's pretty good. Ray Peck, if they put the defense on the field and try and stop someone, has a chance to beat anybody. Offensively, they're as good as anybody. They got to get past Lee Summit in week one. Lee Summit's a talented team, can score some points. They can't look past their Lee Summit. But on the Liberty North bracket, I think Liberty North's going to beat Blue Springs, but it's not the same Blue Springs team they beat a few weeks ago. They're playing. They just decided, they'd been kind of a run-heavy team. They played Ray Peck and said, "Screw it, we're just going to throw the ball over the yard," and hung 60 points on Ray Peck and got the win. It's definitely a spot where Liberty North, they got to take care of their business in week one, make sure they don't have anything bad happen. I don't think they will. But then you look at that, the rest of that bracket, 2, 3, 4 are not necessarily nailed down. We talked about Staley and Park Hill South and Rockhurst and Park Hill. And even though Blue Springs South really handled Liberty last week, they have to play them again this week at home. Their first home playoff game since they went undefeated and won a state championship in 2015. In fact, it was funny. A buddy of mine is a PA guy for South, and I get a text message from him on Saturday. He's like, "Am I working on Friday?" And I'm like, "Yep, Dave Cooley, you're working. You gotta go. Gotta because he was planning on maybe going out of town, and he had to change his plans. So he stayed in town a couple more days before he was going to head out. No, it's all those games are toss-ups, and I think that going forward, I think Liberty North is still the class that district. I don't think anybody's going to tell you differently, but those are the Liberty North could be playing 5, 6, 7 in the championship game. Or 4, 6, 7 in the championship game, or they could be playing 2 or 3. It just depends.
Moving forward here, Green Valley, Fort Osage, Oak Park. Would any of these teams have a good shot at making the final in Class 5?
I think, they match up with Carthage on the same side, so it'll be tough. But I like the way all 3 are constructed. They play defense, they run the ball, they can throw it enough to keep teams honest. They're all physical teams. You throw Raytown in there too. They've got a really talented quarterback in Nathan Whitebear, and of course Logan Reichert, the outstanding tackle that they have. That would be in the Grand Valley's district if they would come out of that. But I think that all 3 of those teams, Oak Park, Fort Osage, and Grand Valley, have a shot. They're not. I wouldn't say they're a favorite to get to the state championship game, but they play the type of football that plays well this time of year.
Class 4, is Center the best team on this side?
I think they're people in Kearney probably.
There's Kearney. I know it's Kearney.
Kearney and Smithville. I think I have something to say about that. The beauty of
getting Smithville 4, yeah. Okay.
The beauty for Center is that they don't have to play both of them. They just got to play one of them probably. So I think Center's going to come out of their district as long as Center stays healthy. They've got the horses. But Kearney is a team that is just, they almost had a hiccup last week against a Belton team. They got their quarterback back. We kind of glossed over Belton's a 4 in that district, and where Green Valley is, they got their quarterback back. That makes them a little bit of a wild card. They've been playing without him pretty much all season. But no, Belton was up on Kearney, but Kearney righted the ship and came back and won that game, which says a lot about them. I mean, that says, they've been just hammering people. It's real easy for kids to go, well, we're locked. They were like, oh, Lathan North locked into that spot. Mm-hmm. So, but no, I think it's Class 4's got, they're on this, our team's on the same side as St. Mary's. Mm-hmm. Who was number 1 until they got beaten, and Kearney's number 1 now. But basically, if you look at the rankings, the top 4 teams are all on the same side of the bracket in 4. And then you go down to 3, and the top 3 of 4, and that Pleasant Hill, and at really 5. If you talk, the 3 of the top 5 are on the same side of the bracket, because Maryville's 5, Pleasant Hill's 3, and Cardinal Red was 1. So the bracket is skewed in some of these. Same with 2. I think Lafayette County and Blair Oaks are on the same side of the bracket. So yeah, it's I'd say that in 3, it's that Pleasant Hill's in a good spot because they're much like Center. They don't have to play Pius, Savannah, and Maryville because those teams are all going to take each other out. So that helps that they're all in the same district. You look at 2, Lafayette County's in a spot where they will have to play Richmond again and get out of their district. And then in 1, you've got Mid Buchanan, East Buchanan in the same district, along with even a team like a North Platte that's kind of an upstart. So I like East Buchanan's chances to repeat. I think they're as loaded as anybody. In 2, Lafayette County's a really good team, but they've got Blair Oaks on their side, so there's a little bit of a roadblock there. And then same thing we saw 3, Cardinal Road was really good, but hey, Pius beat Cardinal Road last year, so it can be done. So it's kind of lay of the land.
As we go into round 1 of the playoffs here, Dion, I'll leave you with this: should this round exist?
Yes and no. I think for some teams it should. For some other teams it shouldn't.
What'd you do? Would you give a bye to like the top 4 seeds or something like that? Or maybe
I've gone.
Don't make it, or how do you do it?
I've done the bottom 4 don't make it. But the only way I would do that is if you had 18 districts and you played everybody in your district during the regular season, because then you've had a head-to-head with everybody and everybody has a chance to play everybody. If you're not playing, or I don't know if I'd lop in 6 on both sides of the state line, and probably 5 in Kansas because, maybe in 5 I might lop off the bottom 2 in each side and send 28 to the and 15 and 6. I don't like the 1 versus 16 and the 2 versus 15. I think that's just
most of the time it's a bloodletting.
Yeah, I mean, and you went to a game last year, and then Highland Park is much improved this year that they didn't finish the game.
Yeah,
I mean, they just ended it. So I think that in Missouri, they in 2 through 5 they spread it out evenly. So there's no 1 seed that's playing this week. Yeah, and the bottom seeds are playing a 2 or even a 3. So there's because of 1 and 2, there's only 6 teams in some districts. And I think that's better. Or the 1 and 2 get those, but there's still some games. Kansas City Central's going to get crushed in what could be their last ever game as a school, and that's too bad. Maybe if they were playing a team that was more like them, just as the last season, still get that game. Yeah. Harmon and Turner could play each other and get a game in.
A lot of states still do like a rivalry game right in the middle of the playoffs or right towards the end, and if it's weird. And then like sometimes if you're still playing in the playoffs, you got to choose between the rivalry game or the playoff game. But it is something like in November that you can play. It's just you're not done before Halloween.
You mean like Webster Groves and Kirkwood that do the Turkey Bowl over in St. Louis? Yeah, and back when they were both good, it was like their JVs would play.
Yeah.
Don't ever talk about not having a rivalry game with those people over there. That they don't care if they win a state championship. The Turkey Bowl is the most important thing between Kirkwood and Webster Groves. I don't know. Yeah. I talk about breaking up conferences and just doing districts. That's a fight that a lot of these schools don't want to that they don't want to do, but don't ever talk about ending the rivalry game between those 2 schools. And they're the only ones who get to do it in the state of Missouri. It's like that's how special they are, those 2 schools.
Well, awesome, Dion. I know you had another podcast to get to, but we'll maybe dive more into Simone Award candidates next week. That sound like a plan?
Yeah, that's we'll be having some stuff out this week, and got a meeting on tomorrow on the Simone committee, and as we start to head down that road, and we'll talk about a lot of those things. But we talked about the Twitter Spaces at the top. We're going to start doing that on Tuesday. Cole and I talked about maybe him hosting one on Fridays in the playoffs once we get a few. Not necessarily this week when there's so many games, but
like during games.
No, like after games are over, kind of like a post game show type thing. So we may look into doing something like that. And thanks for everyone who stopped by and the people who are continuing to listen to it after it's
on. And Twitter Spaces is a very new thing. So once people get a better, I had never been on one before, and I'm on Twitter all the time.
I hadn't either. One of the guys who writes for us, Ryan Edwards, he does a Kentucky basketball one. His family's originally from Kentucky. He gets on there, and then he does some kind of paranormal ghost thing too, I guess. And I don't know. I just see it when it's on, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that's about. But no, I think it's one of those things that we just threw it out there at 6:00, and we had 90 people listen live, and then over 100 have listened to it since.
How long were you on it?
We were about 40 minutes.
Okay.
So about what we do here. It was about, and we had a couple people ask questions. So
Cool.
wasn't bad.
All right, sounds like a plan. Best of luck to all the teams out there in the first round of the playoffs in Kansas and Missouri. For Dion, I'm Mick. We'll see you next time right here on Snap Tackle Pod.